7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good evening, friends. I am Dr. Sunil Shah, Honorary Secretary of Ahmedabad and Obstetric Gynec Society. I welcome you all on behalf of Ahmedabad Obstetric Gynec Society, President Dr. Rajalben Thakar, and whole team AOGS. This is an webinar organized by AOGS along with SOGO. Today we have galaxy of speakers with us, and the subject will be COVID and pregnancy. We have Dr. Rajal Thakar, Professor of Sardaben Obstetric and Gynecological Society. We have Dr. Parulben Shah, HOD of SVP Hospital, and today one of the special star amongst all these galaxy speaker is Dr. Gitendra Sharma. Dr. Gitendra Sharma is our own member as well as past president of Ahmedabad Obstetric and Gynecological Society. Dr. Gitendra Sharma is a medical legal expert and is well renowned all across the India from north to south and from east to west. As such, Dr. Gitendra Sharma doesn't require any introduction, and he is a very talented person. He is a doctor, he is a medical legal advisor, and he has his credit of having many gold medals in LLB as well as LLM. Dr. Gitendra Sharma, as all of us know, that he is a gynecologist, and now he is contesting for the post of Vice President Foxy from West Zone. So we all need to support him wholeheartedly. So I also invite Dr. Gitendra Sharma for this presentation, and there will be a panel discussion along with that. So we will introduce further all the galaxies of the panelists as this progresses, our webinar progresses. But before that, I would like to invite, if Dr. Dipesh Zodakia is available, he has joined, then I invite Dr. Dipesh Zodakia. Dr. Dipesh Zodakia is a convener of SOGO, and if he has not come, I will request Dr. Meenakshi Patel. Madam is a president of SOGO, and I invite him to say a few words regarding this. Madam Meenakshi.
Good evening, good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of SOGO, as a president, I, Dr. Meenakshi Patel, welcome all the members of Ahmedabad Obstetric and Gynec Society, President Rajal Madam, Secretary Sunil Shah, and many stalwarts of Ahmedabad Obstetric and Gynec Society. Ahmedabad Obstetric and Gynec Society have lot of legend faculties in the Ahmedabad. Organizers to lot of pain for organizing this live webinar jointly with SOGO and Ahmedabad Obstetric Gynec Society. For Rajal Ben and Sunil Bhai for becoming a president and secretary, I congratulate both of you, and I think this must be your first webinar. In today's webinar, they will cover the recent update of COVID-19 in pregnancy and its management in labor and throughout the pregnancy. Both the topics are very useful to all of us, as these are not given in any textbooks, but both the speakers will throw a light on COVID-19 with their own total experience in government hospital that will help us in day-to-day practice. Another interesting topic is medical legal issues in day-to-day practice by Dr. Gitendra Sharma. I will like to say something regarding for Dr. Gitendra Sharma. He is a contestant for the Foxy Vice President election, and it is our SOGO moral responsibility to support our own SOGO member, and my personal request to all our members for supporting Gitendra Sharma in the election, and so that we can have our own SOGO member at the level of Foxy. Today, I will like to say again, please give vote for the Gitendra Sharma. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Meenakshi Ben. Dr. Dipesh Bhai has come and he has joined. I request Dr. Deepesh Zodakia, convener of SOGOG, to say few words regarding AOGS SOGOG webinar and for Dr. Gitendra Sharma. Dr. Deepesh bhai.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, respected senior teachers, my colleague, and my students. In this era of COVID-19, we are doing CME in different way, and now we, as a SOGOG, started such webinars for our members to have a continued medical education. And for this purpose, we have started this web series to enlighten the knowledge of the recent and in touch with all the SOGOG members. So, in association with the Ahmedabad Obstetric and Gynec Society, we are doing this webinar for our members. So, all of you enjoy this new way of study the subject. And one more request for all of the SOGOG member. As a convener of this SOGOG, I request all of you to support our own Dr. Gitendra Sharma as a Vice President FOXI in this coming election of the FOXI 2020. So now, not coming in between the way of faculties and you, we start this webinar, and I request Sunil to invite the first speaker of this event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deepesh bhai, for a very nice word for the AOGS and Dr. Sharma ji. Now we are going ahead with the first presentation, and the first presentation is from none other than our President, Ahmedabad Obstetric and Gynecological Society, and very well-known face of SOGOG, Dr. Rajal Ben. So Dr. Rajal Ben is going to speak on the subject of recent updates about COVID in pregnancy. I invite Dr. Rajal Ben to carry on the webinar and speak on the subject. Dr. Rajal Ben.
Thank you, Sunil, for the kind introduction, and I thank SOGOG for inviting me and carrying out this unique webinar. And I also give my warm wishes to Dr. Gitendra Sharma for his candidature, and I'm sure that he's going to win with a thumping majority for his VP candidature. Best wishes, Dr. Sharma, and herewith I start my presentation. So I'm going to speak on the recent updates of COVID-19. We all so far have known that pregnant women don't have much of the not appear to more likely to contract the infection other than the general population. And even at our hospital, we are having about 20% of the patients who are having COVID positive results. But pregnancy itself alters body's immune system and responds to the viral infection in general, which can occasionally be related to more severe symptoms, and this will be the same for the COVID-19. Even the pneumonia in pregnancy is milder with good recovery. But the other corona infections like SARS and MERS will be there and more in the third trimester of the pregnancy. One of the recent studies of Oxford and Royal College has shown that pregnant women no more likely to become severely ill, but most expectant mothers who develop serious illness tend to be in the later stages of the pregnancy. This was the study of about 427 women. Only fewer than 0.5% were admitted in the hospital, and out of this, 1 in 10 were having intensive care. So they are not at much of the risk than the wider population. One of the Swedish study showed that the pregnant women with disease were more than 5 times as likely to need the intensive care. Scandinavian journals also says that women should take necessary precautions to avoid the infection during pregnancy. One of the recent study published in BMJ said that 56% were the minor and the black and the other ethnic minority groups overweight. 40% were more than 35 years, and 30% had other health conditions as well. There are reports of preterm birth in with the COVID-19 and pregnancy, but it is not very clear what is the mechanism exactly. And pregnant women with heart disease have much higher risk for this infection. Another study says that women having COVID-19 pregnancy having higher depression, anxiety risk for the pregnant women. Another study says that uptrend trend in the distress and psychiatric symptomatology for this corona positive. So we have to be very careful while handling this women elsewhere. So mental health is again a very important issue, and perinatal anxiety, depression, as well as the domestic violence because of the stress. If the woman is COVID positive, then it is we have to take care of that also. Pregnancy and childbirth needs special care in non-COVID patient as well as in the COVID patient, and we have to be very careful while treating all these patients. And also as a healthcare professional, we have to be careful about our hand hygiene and appropriate use of PPE while taking care of patients. Mode of delivery, cesarean section should only be performed when medically justified. Otherwise, it should be individualized based upon the woman's preferences along the side of obstetric indications. It is a multidisciplinary approach that we need to manage the COVID-infected patient. We have seen this type of acrylic table for the management of the patient who is anesthetist. He or she will be standing on this side and hands would be introduced through these holes and give the anesthesia. So we have seen this, but recently there is a paper published on the effective protective equipment for the vaginal delivery of the COVID-19 patient. And here you can see that the patient is having, and there is a protective equipment so that the aerosol spray cannot happen. Another study recently published has shown that anorectum has a potential alternative route for the transmission. So this is also we have to consider whenever we are conducting a vaginal delivery. Amniotic fluid does not show the SARS, COVID infection. So it is not, the study has not shown that it is there. Another study has shown that placental pathology in the COVID patient, they have found that on the placental surface, the virons are seen. And because of this placenta, it shows the increased prevalence of decidual arteriopathy and other features of maternal vascular malperfusion. And this may reflect a systematic inflammatory or hypercoagulable state influencing the placental physiology. So this is one of the findings, that is the placenta is having changes. And it is explained in one of the studies that pregnant women is injuring placenta, and the study was done by Dr. Jeffrey Goldstein, and he mentioned that we need to follow all these patients, the babies who are delivered on a long-term basis, because when Spanish flu occurred a century ago, those babies who were followed up, when babies became adult, they had a higher rates of heart disease and other long-term outcomes. So we have to be careful, and we need to have the long-term studies of all these babies so that we can have more light as the years passes. One of the surgery journal has published that it can be present in the peritoneal fluid. So this is one study, but another study says that it is not detected in the peritoneal fluid. So there are two extremes. One study says that it is there. Another study says it is not present in the peritoneal fluid. So these are the two studies. One of the latest study published on June 15th by Johns Hopkins University, that they showed that the corona can affect the human brain and it can replicate there. Even the Wuhan patients had neurological symptoms like dizziness, headaches, etc. And whether we don't know whether it is because directly this viron has gone inside, or it is a secondary result caused by damage to the patient's immune and the cardiovascular system. Even the loss of smell is because of the direct infection of olfactory neurons, or a side effect of infection in other cells involved in the olfaction. So Johns Hopkins is having a model of mini brains known as the brain sphere. It mimics the human brain, and they have done some studies. But this module or the mini brain lacks the blood-brain barrier. So we don't know whether blood-brain barrier helps in, protecting the our own brain for while keeping the virus away. So, Professor Hartung has some concern about this fetal brain that we still have have to wait for the data that whether the fetal brain is affected or not, or whether the placenta and embryo like in the blood-brain barrier, so that it may be having some effect during the early development. So we have to be very careful as an obstetrician for the developmental disorders, and we need to know the consequences about of this could happen to the baby. This research has a significant implications because if it does infect the brain, it may complicate our efforts because certain medicines don't traverse the blood-brain barrier. So if at all it is infecting the brain, then we have a tough time treating the patient. So many webinars are there, and sometimes it may be a situation like this that we are confused that what actually is the outcome or what the inference. But at present we are having less number of data and the research publications, so we are also learning as the days passes. Hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine early in the early days of pandemic, it was thought that it was be very useful, and that's what the FDA granted the emergency use of it in early March this year. Even Trump said that I'm using one pill a day, but this was early positive results were not much helpful, and therefore on 15th June, FDA withdrew the emergency use authorization of HCQ. So this is one point that now we are HCQ has been withdrawn. And another, FDA again warns against the co-administration of remdesivir along with the chloroquine and HCQ. So this is a very recent development. One of the trial that is called randomized evaluation of COVID therapy, that is recovery trial, that is very assuring, and it says that dexamethasone reduces the risk of death among the patient with respiratory complication. So this is a very good step, and we are looking forward to the results, and the more patients will be benefited. On a lighter side, the United Kingdom's the study says that it is a breakthrough. But then some quacks would say that, haha, I have been using it for years for the fevers since ages. So this is just on a light side. On 18th March, WHO started one project that is called as the Solidarity Clinical Trial, which is around the world, all countries are registered, and so much research is going on. It is the 4 drugs that will be used, that is remdesivir, hydroxychloroquine, ritonavir, and interferon beta. But as I told earlier, on 17 June, HCQ is withdrawn. So now it is trial will proceed with the only 3 arms. But some data will be generated that will be used for the research purpose. Even this the trial has included for the vaccination also, and it has developed a multinational coalition for the vaccine scientists defining as a global target product profile. And this will be useful for the long-term protection for the healthcare workers, and also for the rapid response immunity for the new outbreak. So these vaccines are also under research, and we are looking forward to have the vaccines very soon. While this trial was on, Lancet has published one article that all these patients were not non-pregnant patients. So now Lancet directed that even pregnancy patient or pregnant patient should be included in the vaccine trial. And another research also said that it should be there because we don't know what is the implication in the pregnant woman. And now the International Solidarity Trial and Recovery Trial, that is for the dexamethasone, now allows the pregnant and lactating woman to participate with the informed consent. So this will have our, helpful to our own fraternity, that we will get some good results. Coming to COVID registry, and these are my last few slides. International COVID registry is already there. So many countries and number of antenatal clinics have started, gathering the data. Our own FOXI has got the FOXI National Registry, and also we are gathering the data of the Indian patients. One of the study in the US that is called a priority, that is full form is Pregnancy Coronavirus Outcome Registry. Again, it is a nationwide registry for the US, and you can get the day-to-day number of COVID positive patient and the area wise there. And same is true for our own app that is launched by our own ministry. So we can get the data of the patients that who is COVID positive in nearby vicinity. Lastly, like on 8 June, ICMR published a data that about 15 to 30% of the people in the containment area are exposed to COVID-19. And this is the first population-based sero surveys in India. And so we are about 30% of people are exposed. And looking to the results, I'm not going much into detail, but it has shown that in some badly hit areas, population is closer to herd immunity than other areas. And it has been estimated that herd immunity for COVID can be achieved up to 60 to 7% of the population is exposed to virus. So we have reached about 30%. So we are looking forward that much of the herd immunity is gained, and we are all protected with the herd immunity. So together we can win. We need to have the efforts, not only the healthcare professionals, but the common people also should support us by wearing the mask, practicing the social isolation, and washing of hands. So it's a together team approach of all the people, and then only we can beat the corona and its consequences. So we have to take the precautions. Thank you so much, and thank you once again, Sogok and all the dignitaries who have invited me, and all those who have joined us through the webinar. Thank you very much, and I wish all the best to Dr. Gitendra Sharma for his candidature. Over to you, Sunil.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rajalben. As usual, wonderful presentation on recent updates of COVID-19, and you have included most of the recent updates, including the Dexona. So you rightly mentioned that now it's a GP's formula, that zinc, vitamin C, chloroquine, and dexamethasone. These everybody was using since ages. Thank you very much for wonderful presentation. Now I invite Dr. Parul-Ben Shah. Parul-Ben Shah, as all of us know, that madam is a head of the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, that is SVP Hospital. And I request, madam is our senior, my senior, I was her junior. So I request madam to speak on the subject of managing obstetric patients of COVID-19 in government setup. So we would like to know from you, madam. Please, stage is yours. Go ahead with your presentation, madam. Thank you. Dr. Parul-Ben, please unmute your laptop.
Hello.
Pradyuman, તમારું લેપટોપ unmute કરો, mute કરો Pradyuman. Yes, thank you. Mute કરો, mute. Dr. Parul-Ben, તમારો અવાજ નથી આવતો.
Now can you listen me?
Yes.
Right?
Now you are audible, madam.
Yeah. Anjali. આગળ નથી જતું.
એના ઉપર એક ક્લિક કરો એટલે જશે. સ્લાઇડ ઉપર એક ક્લિક કરો. Yes.
Medical legal expert has arrived to rescue you.
Yeah. We can't function without resident doctors. One thing I want to share is Rajal and Gitendra are from the same batch, 1982 batch. Cheers to all three of us. I'm starting my presentation. Thank you, Sogok and AOGS, for inviting me. My topic is management of pregnant patients with COVID-19 in our tertiary care center, SVP Hospital. Now, COVID-19, a recent outbreak of the novel coronavirus, now called SARS-CoV-2, and spread of the infection is being closely monitored worldwide. Today, I will share our experience managing COVID-19 in our own institution. We'll discuss about effect of COVID-19 on mothers, fetus, antenatal care in COVID infection, intrapartum care, and postpartum management. What is COVID-19 is known by everyone. What are the common symptoms? The common symptoms are fever, cough, difficulty in breathing. Nowadays, we see more of the GI symptoms like diarrhea, abdominal cramps, and in many patients, we have seen altered sense of smell and taste. And in some patients, because of altered smell and taste, patient comes for tasting and they have come positive. So that symptom is not to be ignored. How is the transmission done? With regard to vertical transmission, emerging evidence shows now suggests that vertical transmission is probable, although the proportion of pregnancies affected to the mother and neonate is yet to be determined. There are no other like vaginal secretions, amniotic fluid, or breast milk. We have seen, we don't have any data showing any type of transmission. What is the effect of COVID-19 on mother? In past, the viral infections were worse in pregnant women. And because of physiological changes in pregnancy, and pregnancy itself is an immunosuppression stage. But that is not found in the COVID-19 pregnant woman. They have the same infection susceptibility as general population. And maternal disease is not aggravated during the pregnancy. That is our experience. If the patient is having complaint of fever leading to oligohydramnios, which is also reversible, but persistent high-grade fever for long time may cause preterm labor or intrauterine fetal death. What is the effect on fetus? As such, COVID-19 virus is not teratogenic. We have no evidence which suggests that it is teratogenic. COVID-19 infection is not an indication for termination of pregnancy, or there is no increased cases of miscarriage or early pregnancy loss. This is our data of SVP hospital. Till now, we have treated 200 patients, 60 are delivered, 60 are antenatally treated, and 75 patients are postnatally treated. We were lucky to do first cesarean section of COVID-19 woman in the whole state of Gujarat, and that was on the date of 28th April 2020. Date was good. What are the steps taken? What happens when the patient comes? When patient comes from different directions. Some patients come by referrals, some come by self-walk, and some comes directly to the casualty. Now the care is taken by OBGYN department or SVP hospital. All the staff is provided with personal protective equipment. And at the gate of the entrance, the staff and our senior resident doctors are located. And as soon as the patient comes, she is provided with a fluid-resistant surgical mask. Then her complete detailed history is taken, whether she is having symptoms of COVID-19 or she has exposure to a patient, to the people with COVID-19. Is she coming from a hotspot area, or is she having any immunocompromised condition along with the symptoms? Then the vital parameters are taken for the patient. If she is hypoxemic, her oxygen saturation is seen. Our main aim is to keep saturation below above 94%. If the patient is symptomatic and her SpO2 is less than 94%, she is directly admitted in the ICU. If the patient is asymptomatic, patient is taken to the ward and her vitals and fetal heart sounds are noted. What is the criteria for ICU admission? More than one of the criteria should be fulfilled. Systolic blood pressure should be less than 100 millimeter, respiratory rate more than 22 or more, and Glasgow Coma Scale less than 50. If the patient is suspected, if she is suspected, she is admitted in the ICU. Then if she turns out positive, she is shifted to positive ICU. Then the further management is given by obstetrician, medicine and anesthesia department. And if she is negative, she is transferred to and handed over to emergency medicine department. Now, what is the standard operating protocols for the treatment of COVID-19 positive who are confirmed positive? When the pregnant woman walked in casualty and if she is preterm, less than 37 weeks, she is admitted in the ward. If she is full term, not in labor, again she is admitted in ward and the plan of delivery is decided. If she is labor, then emergency LSCS or normal delivery. The indications are the same as in non-COVID patients. What is the antenatal care provided to the suspected COVID-19? Once she is settled in the isolation room, pool assessment, maternal and fetal is done by the senior most available consultant, and the plan of treatment is decided along with the general medicine consultant. Maternal observations including temperature, respiratory rate and oxygen saturation along with fetal heart rate are noted. Till now, our observation is we have not given anything else than Zincovit, vitamin C and azithromycin to the antenatal patients. How will you care a patient in labor? When a woman is confirmed or suspected COVID positive admitted in the labor room, all the consultants are informed like obstetrician, anesthesiologist, neonatologist and the respected nurses in charge. Efforts are made to minimize the number of members entering the room. If she is in labor and normal delivery is to be conducted, it is to be conducted by senior most resident. SRs are mostly doing the labor, and then to cut short second stage of labor, it is decided as an individual basis because as such pregnancy is a condition of hypoxemia. So individual case is to be assessed. If she is a case for cesarean section, and then pre-operative preparations are made. If the patients are suspected and report is not there, all the cases are treated as positive before surgery. Ultrasound of abdomen and fetus is done. Risk assessment is discussed with the relatives. Her consent is taken, and anesthesiologist and pediatrician are informed. What are the do's and don'ts in the obstetric care? If a woman meets the criteria for COVID-19 testing, she should be tested. And if the report is confirmed COVID-19, until the test result comes, she is treated as COVID-19 positive. During that time, the obstetric management is not delayed. Elective procedures like induction of labor and growth scan ultrasonography are minimized. And if at all ultrasound equipment is done, it is decontaminated after use. What is the general advice given by the gynecology for the theatre management? Emergency procedures are carried out in a separate obstetric operation theatre. Our hospital has a facility of HEPA filter. The number of staff in the operating theatre should we keep them to the minimum. All staff are trained how to use PPE, how to do donning and doffing. Anesthetist part is managed by anesthesia consultant, and department should consider organizing dry run simulation exercise to prepare the staff, build confidence and identify areas of concern and give them training emergency transfers to the operating theatre. After delivery, postnatal care, immediately after cesarean section, the patient is admitted in the ICU and the symptomatic management is given by the medicine department and wound care is taken by obstetric department. A risk and benefit discussion with neonatologist is taken and the families and individualized care of the babies is discussed with the families and all the babies are given care according to RCPHC guidance. What happens to the newborn? After the baby is delivered, all babies are admitted in an ICU. Then the neonatal swab is taken. If the swab is positive, the baby is admitted in the NICU. She is discharged after the baby becomes asymptomatic. If she is negative, decision should be taken by the patient relatives and patient's choice regarding further newborn care. Till now, we have data of 150 patients and among them, 9 babies have come to be COVID positive and the babies are discharged only after they become negative from the hospital. Infant feeding. What are the precautions should be taken to limit viral spread to the baby? For that, wash hands before touching the baby. Breast pumps and bottles all to be cleaned. Mother should be advised to take the hand hygiene and should use coughing or sneezing before feeding. She should wear a surgical face mask while giving feeding, and where women are expressing breast milk, a dedicated breast pump is to be used. What are the discharging advice? If patient is asymptomatic for 10 days, she can be discharged from the hospital and she's allowed a 7 days home quarantine. Discharge of postpartum women are done according to the guidelines. So I conclude that the COVID-19 outbreak is rapidly increasing in the number of cases, deaths and countries affected. Standard intervention to manage any severe respiratory infection is the foundation of care for any pregnant woman with COVID-19 and should be implemented aggressively in a team-based care model. I thank Dr. Rajal for inviting me and all the team of SOGOG and AOGS. Thank you all. This is the last slide and this is our OT. Just have a look of SVP OT. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Dr. Parulben, for a wonderful presentation of managing obstetric patient once COVID is positive, a pregnant lady. Thank you very much. Now we are moving ahead with our next important session, and the session is of a panel. Here the moderator is Dr. Gitendra Sharma, a star moderator, and the galaxy of panel. I would like to invite them one by one. So the subject is Stump the Expert, Dr. Gitendra Sharma, a Sachin Tendulkar. And we have a galaxy of panelists in the form of Dr. MC Patel. MC Patel, everybody knows that he is one of the finest medical legal expert and very knowledgeable person. Hemant, you want to say something?
Dr. Parul Bhai has to attend this EMA 4:30 to Ranchi. So yeah. I would request Dr. MC Patel if we can accommodate Dr. Parul Bhai first to ask the question. That would be very nice.
Okay, Hemant Bhai, first I am just introducing all of them and then I will ask Dr. Parul Bhai to speak on this thing. I think before that we will come to Dr. Parul Bhai.
Okay. That's
fine? Yeah, okay. So Dr. MC Patel, everybody knows him. He's a very fine medical legal expert, very knowledgeable, very soft spoken and very helping in nature to everybody. He was a past president of Ahmedabad Obstetric and Gynecological Society, president of AMA and president of NMO. Another panelist.
Can I interrupt? Everybody knows the panelists. Can we cut short the introduction so that we can benefit more from Dr. Gitendra Sharma?
That's great. That's great. Okay, that I will do. So now straight away, I am mentioning the name of the panelist, Dr. MC Patel. Dr. Hemant Bhatt, Dr. Pradyuman Vaja, Dr. Rajnibai Contractor, Dr. Parul Kotadawala, and myself are the panelists. Now I request Dr. Parul Kotadawala to start bowling to Sachin Tendulkar, Dr. Gitendra Sharma. Dr. Parul Kotadawala.
I think he might have left. Okay. Then we can request Dr. MC Patel to ask the question.
Okay.
Okay. So, in this era, when we practice our OBGY, and it is known statistics from different fora and different courts that we gynecologists rank first as far as medical legal problems are concerned. And many a times we are worried which kind of cases can we sue against us, who can sue, and in which fora one can sue. So there are so many dilemmas in our gynecologist friend. As such, a patient is free to sue anybody in any fora and at any time, of course with limitations law, but usual scenario comes major part in two sections. One is civil liability and second is criminal liability. So many a times two of our friends are worried, may we be sued in a criminal liability and may we be arrested by police personnel. There are so many problems. So let us see what Dr. Gitendra Sharma has to say to clarify what is civil liability and what is criminal liability. Yes, over to Dr. Gitendra.
Thank you very much, sir. First of all, at the outset, I would like to thank Sobok and AOGS for giving me this opportunity to meet all of you. In specific, I thank Dr. Dipesh Bhai, Dr. Meenakshi Ben, Dr. MC Patel sir, Dr. Hemant Bhai, Dr. Sunil Bhai, Dr. Rajal Ben for giving me this opportunity. I would like to say a few words for Dr. MC Patel. He is so genuine that he is taking interest in my election and he is persuading me and introducing me at various places all over India. So thank you very much for Dr. MC Patel for the same. And regarding the civil liability and criminal liability, see, the basic principle of civil liability and criminal liabilities are different. Okay. See, in civil liability, the basic principle is that even if there is smallest amount of damage to the patient, then that damage is to be compensated. So that is a pro-consumer. And in criminal liability, it is pro-accused. Means 100, I can say the accused can be left away, but one innocent should not be punished. So everything in criminal liability, there is strict liability, while in civil liability, the liberal liability is there. Then any negligence for attracting civil liability, the negligence can be even a small negligence. So it is a sine qua non in the language of legal language. But to attract the criminal liability, the negligence should be gross negligence. For simple negligence, criminal negligence cannot be attracted. Now, what is the meaning of gross negligence? That is defined in IMA versus VP Shanta's case, as well as in M. D'Souza versus Mohammad Ishfaq's case by Justice Markande Katsu, as well as it was defined in Suresh Gupta's case. So in 2004 August, this case of Suresh Gupta versus National this Central Territory, NCT, Delhi NCT, in that case it was decided that to attract criminal liability, the negligence should be gross. And what is the meaning of gross? Gross means something which is not mentioned in your book as a complication. So suppose simple complication does not attract gross negligence. Gross means suppose some other doctor would have been there. He would never have done the same thing. So suppose if you have left instrument in abdomen, if you have left mop in abdomen, if you have operated on wrong limb, left limb instead of right, or wrong eye, or if you have given wrong gases, like nitrous oxide given instead of oxygen. So these all kinds of negligence are considered as gross negligence. And in criminal negligence, the case is filed against state. As it is a gross negligence, the party against you is state, against doctor is state. While in civil liability, it is an individual person who has bear the damage, and that damage is to be compensated to an individual person, and that's why the case is registered in civil courts under personal name of the patient who sues the doctor. So it is patient versus doctor. And in civil cases, in most of the cases, the punishment is the compensation of damage. While in criminal case, the punishment is imprisonment plus minus. Means they may give the damage also in criminal law in a few cases, but the main purpose of criminal law is to punish. So whenever patient wants to only cover the damage, patient will only file the suit in civil cases or consumer fora. But if patient has grievance and patient feels that the doctor should be punished for this particular act, then for that purpose, for punishment purpose, patient files case against doctor in criminal courts.
તો સાદું ગુજરાતી ભાષામાં એમ કહી શકીએ કે પેશન્ટને જો પૈસા જોઈતા હોય કોમ્પન્સેશનના ભાગરૂપે તો એ સિવિલ શૂટ કરશે અને એને એમ હોય કે નાના ડાક્ટરને તો દેખાડી દેવું છે અને એરેસ્ટ કરાવવા છે તો એ ક્રિમિનલ કેસમાં જશે. એને એમ હોય કે નાના ડાક્ટરને તો પ્રેક્ટિસ જ છોડાવી દેવી છે તો એ કદાચ મેડિકલ કાઉન્સિલ ઓફ ઇન્ડિયામાં પણ ફરિયાદ કરશે. અને એ સિવાય માનો કે ગવર્મેન્ટ ડોક્ટરો હોય તો એ ડિપાર્ટમેન્ટલ ઇન્ક્વાયરીના ભાગરૂપે ગવર્મેન્ટમાં પણ ફરિયાદ કરશે. એટલે પેશન્ટ શું કરશે ને એ કાયમ અનપ્રિડિક્ટેબલ હોય and we should be ready to face any consequences. Just like in a game of cricket, just now we are bowling and Dr. Sharmaji batting. So bowling is in hand of patient and we have to get only in any given situation. So very nicely elaborated, Sharmaji.
Tragedy in Indian legal system is that anybody can sue anybody and at any number of places. So patient can sue simultaneously in civil court as well as in criminal court as well as in council as well as in commission as well as under clinical establishment that at CMO office and as well as in chief minister's office. So they can go at all fora all together.
Yes.
That is the tragedy of Indian legal.
One clarification for compensation, simultaneously he cannot go for CPA suit as well as civil suit.
Yes, that is same.
Yes, that is the same. So now one more clarification I would like to have from you. You just mentioned about the criminal liability and in that negligence should be high. So we can say high standard of recklessness on part of treating doctor. So many a times patient or relative of patient goes to police station and file a case against doctor, or they straightway go to court also for filing a criminal case. But my question, if patient doesn't go to police station or any relative of patient doesn't go to police station, police officer suo moto initiate investigation against doctor or sue any case against doctor?
Court.
If patient has complained in police station, it is very obvious that investigating officer, either PI or whosoever is given charge, will investigate the case accordingly.
Yeah.
But there is no complaint on part of patient or relative to any police station. Can any police officer go for sue against doctor?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. See, suo moto, any court and any police person can start inquiry. So after inquiring, if something negligent or gross negligence is found, but then case can definitely be filed against doctor, even though patient is not ready to file the case.
So can we say it is in a general interest of public?
Yes. Yes. Because case is filed on behalf of state only. All criminal cases are filed on behalf of state. So state has all the right to file case. So suo moto case can be filed.
Yes. So any court go for suo moto same
Yeah.
way any.
I will give you an example, sir. A few days back, you must have heard a case in nearby Ahmedabad, in which one fetus was found in the bathroom of a gynecologist.
Hmm.
Okay. And in that case, the party had no complaint against doctor, but DHO filed a case against doctor.
Hmm.
So there was no negligence on the part of doctor towards DHO, but DHO filed FIR against doctor rather than patient, and patient has given in writing that I have no complaint against doctor. Even then DHO filed the case. So
This type of case can be filed in a criminal forum.
yes.
Because as far as compensation part is concerned, or CP or civil part is concerned, that particular DHO or any police station officer is not party to treating doctor. So they can only go for criminal suit. Is it clear?
Yes.
So yes. So thank you very much, Dr. Gitendra Sharma, and all the best for your election campaign.
Thank you, sir. Parul bhai aa gaya.
Now, Dr. Parul bhai has joined us. So I request Dr. Parul bhai, Vice Chairperson of ICOG, to ball the good line or a Yorker or a bouncer to Dr. Gitendra Sharma.
Hello, I hope I am audible now. I was trying, but I had a wrong link, and so I could see you people. You were not able to see me. So technology at times really create issues. Well, Gitendra, all the best for your election, and I am sure you are a master batsman, always clicking sixes and fours. Well, I have a couple of questions. Recently Parliament, what we learned from media, that Parliament had changed the CPA law pertaining to medical profession. So can you just update us on that, because there is no clarity that whether doctors are now under.
Yes. So, sir, very nice question, because most of us are ignorant what is CPA 2019. See, in 2018, a bill was put in Lok Sabha, and that was passed on 9th August 2019. So in Lok Sabha, and it is gazetted on 9th August. So from 9th August 2019, the old CPA, that was CPA 1986, is now no more. That is repealed, and new CPA, that is Consumer Protection Act 2019, is enacted. And there are so many provisions which are worrisome for a doctor. The most important thing, when this act came, everybody was, I can say, celebrating that now doctors are removed from the 2019 CPA. But sir, it is a misconception. See, the word healthcare and telecommunication, these are the two words which were not there even in 1986 CPA. But when the bill was framed in 2015, they added these two words, telecommunication and healthcare, in this CPA 2019. But on insistence of Indian Medical Association and a few other fora, they again removed that word healthcare and telecommunication. Now, removing that word from CPA does not mean that you are being removed from the jurisdiction, because even in 1986, healthcare word was not there, but we were included as a service provider under definition 2 subsection O and of CPA under IMA versus VP Shanta's case. So if after this CPA will be enacted, so till date CPA Act is there, rules are not been framed, and that's why the courts have not followed or started following that CPA 2019, and they are working as per 86 only. But the day on which somebody will file a case in the court of law that doctors should be removed and the decision will come, only then we can say that doctors have been removed. So the query is there, and query will be cleared only after some decision will come, because what we interpret that doctors were included in CPA as per decision of IMA versus VP Shanta, and that was 2-judge bench decision. So unless or until that decision is overruled by some other decision, till then, yes, doctors will be there.
No, but see, you mentioned
And
the word.
if you want to know about the few things in CPA which are important for us, so I can narrate those things. See, new CPA, territorial jurisdiction is changed. Previously, patient has to sue the doctor at a place where doctor is practicing. But now in this CPA 2019, patient has all the right to sue you even from the place where patient resides or patient do the business. So suppose some patient from Kerala comes to you in Gujarat, and after going to Kerala, that patient can sue you in Kerala Consumer Commission, Consumer Fora, and it will be very difficult to defend yourself sitting at Gujarat. Second thing, pecuniary jurisdiction is also changed. Previous till today, it is 20 lakhs in district Fora, 20 lakhs to 1 crore in state, and if compensation demanded is above 1 crore, then it is directly filed in National Commission. But in this new section, the compensation demanded is removed. Now, the word is there that the amount of charges of treatment, so charges of services. So whatever charges of services are there, depending upon that, the pecuniary jurisdiction. So it is said that up to 1 crore, the case will go into district commission, 1 to 10 crore, it will go into state commission, and about 10 crore, it will go into national commission. Now, again, query is, there is no clarity whether the amount of compensation demanded is to be considered as this jurisdiction or the amount of services or charges for services which are taken by the hospital. So if it is like that, then every case will go through district commission first, because no doctor is going to charge above 1 crore. The third thing that is added is that in previous CPA, the qualification of sitting member were defined. But now in this CPA, the qualification is removed. So anybody can be appointed by central government as a sitting member now. Previously, there was selection committee also, which is supposed to appoint sitting member. And there was qualification that in district and state commission, the retired high court judge should be put as a sitting member, as a president. And in national commission, retired judge from Supreme Court should be there. But now that qualification is removed. So now anybody can be appointed by central government. So it will be a politicization of Consumer Protection Act as far as I feel. And one more thing, that Central Consumer Protection Authority is being created over and above Fora. So if cases related to unfair trade practices will directly be decided by Central Consumer Protection Authority, and they have given vast power. Who do not have, they are also directly appointed by central government, and they have been given power of up to 10 lakhs rupees punishment directly for advertising for unfair trade practice. And unfair trade practice include excessive pricing. Now, what is the meaning of excessive pricing is not defined in the act. So that means government is now planning to, I can say, cap your consultation fee also. So if government will decide that you can take consultation only up to 400 rupees, not more than that, and if you charge 500 rupees, then you can be in the problem under this act. Second thing, in unfair trade practice, if you don't issue bill, so suppose if you receive more than 50 rupees from the patient and you forget to issue the bill, that will be considered again as an unfair trade practice, and you can be punished up to 10 lakhs rupees punishment. So there are, for advertising, nothing is clear that what should be considered as advertisement, because making your website is considered in Kerala Commission, State Commission, as an advertise. So if that kind of definition is there for advertise, then we all will be in problem. And if you will create website of your hospital or clinic, then you can be held responsible under that advertising. Previously, ASCI was the body who were dealing this, but now direct Central Consumer Protection Authority will see such kind of cases, and there will be punishment for first problem at up to 10 lakhs, and for subsequent up to 50 lakhs rupees punishment can be awarded against you. So there are so many problems in CPA. Only one good thing is that they have added that mediation is possible now according to new CPA.
So, what you gave us such elaborate details, I have two more queries from that itself.
Yes, yes.
One is that you used broadly the word service provider. It is not medical profession, but all service providers.
Yes,
So,
yes.
whether other service providers like legal profession and all are covered in this?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. And second thing was this jurisdiction, that many times when we purchase a product, suppose I purchase something from a person from Mumbai, they mention jurisdiction Mumbai only. Can we do something similar in our receipt to the patients?
Yes.
That jurisdiction will be Ahmedabad only?
Yes, everybody do like that. But now in CPA it is clear. So what we write is not above law. So whatever you will write, that will not have any value now.
Okay. Now, one more query. When we were students, we used to feel that as resident, we are not covered under this any legal aspect. Our teachers are supposed to look after the legal part. Residents are immune. But subsequently, there were some noises that unless we, they are also legally liable for patient care. So, can you throw some light on this?
Sir, the first case against resident was filed in Gujarat only, and the resident was from Government Hospital of Gujarat. Dr. Gadvi, something I do not remember the name, but something Dan Bhairav Dan or something Dan Gadvi was there, and against that resident for TL failure the case was filed, and in that case 2 lakhs rupees compensation was granted. That was the first case against resident. After that, there are not less than 100 cases in PGI Hospital, PGI Chandigarh, in AIMS. There are so many junior resident and senior residents who have been sued for negligence under CPA. So now the definite, and in multiple cases, compensation is granted against residents also. So it is my message I want to give, that now senior resident and junior resident also supposed to take indemnity insurance, even though they are working in government hospital.
No, the government would not cover them because they are working in the government, under government.
No, usually if you are employee of government, then you have to have one contract with the government. And if in that contract it is clear that government covers you, then it is okay. But if that kind of contract is not there, then for your negligence, you are supposed to pay. And sometimes if government pays on your behalf, government can recover it from your salary also.
Okay, I think you have given us many details, but for TL, I understand that even if private doctor does a TL under government program, then he is also covered by the government for financial liabilities.
Yes, sir. Sir, there is financial, this family planning insurance scheme, and that is enacted by central government. So to one insurance company, they have paid multiple this lump sum installment for 1 year. And under that FPAI, if you follow the guidelines of that FPAI manual, then you are covered under that family planning insurance scheme. But to clarify that FPAI covers you for non-negligent thing. So suppose death occur, okay, then they will pay compensation of 2 lakhs rupees to patient directly. If there is any complication, which rather force you to remain in hospital for more than 7 days, then they will give you 30,000 immediately as a compensation. But that doesn't mean that you can restrain the patient from filing a suit against you. Patient can definitely file a suit.
Okay, I think I will
give you an example. I will give an example. Suppose you fly with some airline, so that airline covers you up to 1 crore rupees. Okay. Now suppose something happens and somebody dies. So that doesn't mean that over and above 1 crore you cannot ask. You can definitely demand over crore. But company says that we are responsible to pay up to 1 crore. And more than that, you have to go to court to demand the compensation.
Okay. Thank you, and I'll take your leave. Okay, MC is thinker, but I have another webinar to attend. But I wish you all the best in your election. Thank you. Yes, MC.
Thank you.
Sarmaji, permits only one query.
Yes, sir.
You told about Consumer Protection Authority and they have power to give verdict about unfair trade practice. But can verdict given by that authority be challenged in any fora? And if yes,
Yes.
then in which fora?
Yes, very nice question. Sir, again, it is said that Central Consumer Protection Authority, whatever decision they will give, that will only be challengeable in High Court, not less than that.
Yes.
30 વર્ષના થાય ત્યાં સુધી
Fine. Yes, over to you, Nick.
નથી કરવું.
થેન્ક યુ વેરી મચ સાહેબ. અરે આ ગીત તો બહુ જોરદાર બેટિંગ કરે છે. હેમંતભાઈ શું કરશું? તમે બોલિંગ નાખશો કે કોન્ટ્રાક્ટર સાહેબને બોલાવીશું?
સારી છે, મને ખબર પડે છે.
હલો,
છોડી દેવાનું, કશું નહીં.
અનમ્યુટ કરો, unmute કરો.
Unmute.
પ્રદ્યુમનભાઈ ને રજનીભાઈ છે એક્સપર્ટ, એમ પૂછવા.
દેવાની. બહુ એમાં પડવાનું છે.
હલો હેમંતભાઈ.
પ્રદ્યુમનભાઈ ને રજનીભાઈ ને પૂછવા એક્સપર્ટ હાજર છે.
Correct. May I request Dr. Rajnibhai to bowl a Dennis Lilly? Dr. Rajnibhai, તમે unmute કરો. Yes.
હેલો.
હા રજનીભાઈ, અને ડોક્ટર મીનાક્ષીબેન ને રિક્વેસ્ટ છે, પ્લીઝ મ્યુટ યોર માઇક. ડોક્ટર મીનાક્ષીબેન.
બોલો રજનીભાઈ.
હા, 1 minute. Sharma Sahib, કેમ છો? How are you? Fine?
I am fine.
Wish all the best.
Thank you,
Sachin
sir.
Tendulkar of a medical legal expert in the India. So wish all the best, and I request all of our SOGOG member and AOGS member vote for him, and definitely will be won. Right now, I'm just giving you the one question to you. Right? Is the government force the under the Epidemic Act that doctor must wear the PPE kit in their clinic when they are going to examine the patient or not?
See, what I can understand your question is that can government force you without providing PPE kit working in government hospital? That is your question.
No. What I mean to say, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it is a very clear-cut judgment by Andhra High Court, and it was the same judgment was there by the Supreme Court, and in which it is clear-cut guideline given that it is a duty of state to provide PPE kits for the benefit of doctors who are working in COVID-19. So it is a duty of state. It is clear in that judgment. And if government do not provide PPE kit, definitely government employee can refuse doing job in COVID-19.
Okay, thank you, sir. Sharma Sahib, my next question. Suppose the patient come to my hospital, right, in the ANC, I do the COVID test, is negative. Once I discharge the patient, I do the cesarean. After the 7 days, the patient is having a fever, etc., and the patient go for the test, and it is a COVID positive, and the patient is say that doctor, in your hospital I get the infection. In that scenario, what I should do?
Yes. So it is very nice question, and this happen in many of the states. This type of cases are being filed against doctor. So at the time of admission, patient was negative. When patient was admitted, patient was discharged. After discharge, patient became positive. So patient sued doctor that this transmission was I received is from your hospital only. But sir, in such cases, definitely patient can file case. It is a right of patient to file case. But in most of the cases, the patient will not succeed. The reason is that it is a dictum or it is a principle in law that prosecution has to prove his case. So here patient will have to prove that the transmission of the disease is only from the hospital and nowhere else. So how that patient will prove, it will be difficult. Now second thing, doctor is responsible not for transmission or anything, answerable for transmission. Doctor is answerable only for his negligence. So if doctor has not taken proper care, then he will definitely be answerable. But if doctor has taken proper care in his hospital, so everything which is every care is been taken by doctor. Suppose mask is provided to the staff member, shield is provided, sanitizer is provided, proper training to staff is given, proper different kind of posters are being displayed in OPD, training is documented, all precautions in indoor and OPD and outdoor, this operation theater is taken in the hospital and everything is documented. Then it is very difficult to prove in the court of law that transmission is done due to the negligence of doctor. And if that is not proved, then doctor can be easily saved for the same. Rajni bhai, hope I am clear.
Rajni bhai, you got the answer? Okay, I think some problem with his mic. Now, may I request Dr. Pradyuman Vaja to go ahead with the question for Dr. Jitendra Sharma.
A very good evening to all the viewers of this webinar, online webinar.
Pradyuman, unmute kar. Pradyuman, mute થઈ ગયો.
આને કર્યો મને સુનિલ.
Yes.
Very good evening to all the online webinar viewers. At the outset, I would like to congratulate the organizers, AOGS and the SOGOG for organizing such wonderful webinar on the useful topics, and also would like to thank the organizers for giving me an opportunity to share a platform with this galaxy of speakers. I know my PG and UG, he was my senior, and he is a multi-talented personality and all-rounder. Sunil, you have been talking of stumping Jitendra, but it's almost impossible to stump him because being an all-rounder, if he is a batsman, he would definitely hit you a six. If he is a bowler, he will stump you. So coming to my question.
આપણી ટીમમાં લઈ ગયા છે એટલે એમને બોલિંગ નહીં કરવા દેવાની પ્રદ્યુમન ક્યારેય ડોક્ટરોની બેટિંગ સાઈડમાં.
હવે his role is of a coach. Anyways, coming back to the point, being a member of Central Supervisory Board, I would stick my question to the PNDT. This is an era of the lockdown, and we all know that since so many last years, the obstetricians have locked down their obstetric practice, and they are running behind the Dynac and ART and infertility practices. The picture is not as rosy as they think. Because even in this field also they have to face many problems. So my question is that if you are an ART specialist and if you are doing ART procedures, what kind of different forms regard to the PCPND Act they are supposed to fill? Like suppose if you are doing a follicular study, embryo transfer, ovulation or ovum pickup, or even say insemination, artificial insemination, then what are the various procedures where you have to fill various forms under the PCPNDT?
Sir, it is a very problematic situation in PCPNDT. We all know that every appropriate authority interprets PCPNDT in his own way, and that is the problem. There is no uniformity of implementation of PCPNDT Act. So I will give in brief that in Ahmedabad and in Gujarat, we do not fill any form for follicular study, for embryo transfer or for ovum pickup. But when you go to Delhi, there are 5 appropriate authorities in 5 different zones of Delhi: East Zone, West Zone, North Zone, South Zone, and all 5 authorities demand different. Somebody says that for follicular study, you are supposed to fill form D and F. Somebody says you are supposed to fill form E also. And see, you are not registered as genetic laboratory. Even then, you are supposed to, you are forced to fill form E over there. So that is the problem, and that is the problem since very beginning. So to clear this problem, we always try to educate all the appropriate authorities. To understand this, we must go through PCPNDT Act. If you go through PCPNDT Act, Section 2 is of definition, and 2IJK, they define what is PCPNDT procedure, test and technique. Now, when you go to I, it says that PCPNDT procedure means if you remove something from the body, either it is fluid, either it is blood, either it is amniotic fluid, either it is tissue, or either it is organ. If you remove it from the body of man or woman and send it for analysis. So genetic, there can be three types of analysis: chromosomal analysis, biochemical analysis, and metabolic analysis. And if you send it for analysis to genetic laboratory, so you have to take out something, you have to send it to genetic laboratory for some kind of analysis. And if through that analysis, that is possible to either sex select, if selection of sex is possible or detection of sex is possible, only then that procedure is considered as PCPNDT procedure. Now tell me, in follicular study, do you remove something? Yes, OA. But do you send something to laboratory? No. So the answer is no. So that means it is not PCPNDT procedure. In embryo transfer, you are transferring embryo from outside to uterus. So we are not doing any removing anything and sending for analysis to genetic lab. So again, it is not a procedure. And for OVM pickup, again, it is not a procedure because you are removing OVA, but you are not sending it anything to for analysis. So it is clear cut that follicular study, OVM pickup, and embryo transfer are not PCPNDT procedure. And when something is not PCPNDT procedure and it is a patient is non-pregnant, in all these three cases, so there should not be any form to be filled, not even form F, because you are doing here sonography on non-pregnant patient. You are not doing on pregnant patient. Okay. Now, second thing that in case of PGD, PGS, where you take embryo biopsy, okay, biopsy from embryo, or NIPT, where you take blood from the patient and send it for analysis to genetic laboratory. Now, in all these three cases, it is possible to detect sex from the laboratory or select sex from the laboratory. So when detection of sex and selection of sex is possible and you send something, some material to genetic laboratory, then it is to be considered as PCPNDT procedure. And if you are doing PGD, PGS or NIPT or amniocentesis or chorionic villus biopsy or chordosynthesis or fetal biopsy, then you are supposed to consider it as an invasive procedure. And whenever you do invasive procedure, you are supposed to fill form F as well as form G. Consent should be taken in form G. And in form F, if you are doing that procedure under sonography guidance, then A, B, C, D, all four sections are to be filled. And if it is not under sonography guidance, that is PGD, PGS and NIPT, then you are supposed to fill only section A, C and D of form F. So hope I am clear. Now the query is, what is fetal reduction? Okay, people understand it in a different way. In fetal reduction, you are supposed to fill only form F, and in form F there is indication that some procedure done under sonography guidance, that is number 20. So you have to tick mark in that, but it is not a PCPNDT procedure because you are not supposed to take consent in form G, or you are not supposed to fill section C because you are not taking out anything and you are not sending anything. You are killing that fetus inside body, but you are not sending anything to laboratory for any kind of analysis. So fetal reduction is not a PCPNDT procedure. It is a simple sonography and you are supposed to fill form F, section A, B and D.
Can you specify in case of IUI?
Yes. Again, there is controversy. So IUI is a process where we put already semen which is provided by bank into uterus. So that is not PCPNDT procedure. But washing sperm can be considered as PCPNDT procedure. The reason is we collect semen, we send it for washing purpose to laboratory, and there are chances that the laboratory may do eye wash. There is some known technique for eye wash with different media. So that is possible. So washing semen, you may consider it as a PCPNDT procedure, but IUI is not a PCPNDT procedure.
So in short, if you are doing IUI with semen wash, then it requires to be form to be filled. But if
Yes.
it is without cement wash, where you have no opportunity to select the wise form, so no need to fill the form.
And sir,
Just I want to highlight.
As you are Central Supervisory Board member, sir, Dr. Rajni Bhai has tried and sent one RTI, and he has received one very nice answer. And now taking into that consideration, we all should force government to implement PCPNDT Act uniformly all over India and to come out with some uniform these guidelines for this.
Let me answer you this question. As you said, this last point, as well as you initially in your talk, you said that there have been different interpretation of the act across the country. In last CSB meeting, this point was put by me in the meeting, and it was well accepted by the secretary. You know that secretary also and the minister also. And in Foxy meeting also, I said they have given me an assignment to highlight all the issues where there is no uniformity across the country, not only in filling up the form. Anywhere, any point in the PNDT, when you see that there is a different interpretation by the different authorities, can we put it on black and white on a simple paper that this is a different interpretation, so that you can mail it to me, or you can send me on WhatsApp also, and I have been assigned that task, that what is the different interpretation and what should be the exact interpretation as per the law.
For your knowledge, I will like to say that in the last month of the tenure of Dr. Nandita Palshetkar, we had a meeting with all the appropriate authorities where Dr. MC Patel, Dr. Rajni Contractor, everybody was. You were also invited in that, but you could not attend that meeting. And in that meeting, we put our stand and we discussed 36 different kinds of issues where there is no uniformity of implementation. So if you can ask, then we can provide all those 36 points to you for the benefit of our fraternity.
Yes, I have to send it.
Uniformity
I have to send it to the secretary. What are the points of controversies, and not only that, what should be the exact solution
we
as per
those issues, and we discussed what should be the solution, and we will give you in writing that.
Okay, now the second question. This is an era of the corona pandemics, which has created many more difficulties in the socio-economic status, and also in our practice also, it has created many issues, because on one side, when during the lockdown, we have been asked to continue our practice, but on the other side, there are situations like, suppose my PNDT registration expires on 30th April. But my hospital is open, but the CDHO office is closed. So what should I do in that situation? Whether should I continue in my practice or doing a sonography, or because my registration is expired, so I should stop doing the sonography?
Yes, sir. On 4th April 2020, the government had issued one notification, and in that notification, it was told that Rule 8, that is in reference to renewal of your registration, Rule 9 subsection 8, that is in reference to reporting appropriate authority every month before 5th of next month, and third is Rule 18A subsection 6. So all these three sections were put in suspension up to 30th June. So that means if your renewal is due in between 4th April to 30th June, then you can continue doing practice even though you do not have renewed your registration. So that should be clear. And you are not supposed to send monthly report, although in Gujarat they have asked that you should send online report. But as per that notification, you are not supposed to send any report. But on 5th July, before 5th July, you will have to send all the pending reports of April month, March, April, and May and June. All reports should be sent to the appropriate authority together. So don't worry if you have, if you are this is expiring on 30th April and you have not received the exact communication from the appropriate authority regarding renewal, you can continue doing sonography till 30th June until some communication from the appropriate authority.
Very rightly said by you that
recently, sir, a few days back only, there was a news. Then one of the social worker, Mr. George Shabu, challenge this notification of government in a very bad taste. But although Supreme Court has not entertained his demand, and Supreme Court has told that up to 30th June we will not interfere. But if after 30th June government will decide again that the suspension should continue, then we will look into the case. So
not only George Sabu, even one member has also opposed this in our CSB. Anyways, just I want to add one point in this, that in Gujarat, not only online filling, but even after doing the online filling of the forms, you have to mail it to the concerned appropriate authority. So that is an addition point. Okay, thank you so much, Gitendra Bhai. Excellent, throwing excellent light on this important topic.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Pradyuman Vaja, for asking a very important question. And few queries amongst this I have, Dr. Gitendra Bhai. You said that
Dr. MC Patel wants to ask something. Dr. MC
let me confirm. Let me ask first the query regarding this. Then I will ask Dr. MC Patel sir. Gitendra Bhai, you said that in IUI, when sperm washing is required, you need to fill the form. So most of the IUI are with semen washing. So you mean to say we have to fill the form, which form and which form for that IUI? As well as in IVF also, we do a semen washing, right? In embryo transfer, we are transferring embryo, but in IVF, there is a sperm washing. So you mean to say that we have to fill up the form for the IVF also?
Sir, the uniformity of interpretation is required. PCPNDT Act is silent regarding the procedure which are to be considered as PCPNDT procedure. That is our interpretation. And our interpretation is as per definition 2I, J and K. And if you interpret in that way, then IUI washing, semen washing is to be considered as PCPNDT procedure. And whenever you have semen, then you are supposed to fill form F, section A, C and D. A, C and D. And you have to take consent in form G.
And form G?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Thank you very much. And now I request, and you said about fetal reduction. Fetal reduction, you said you just have to take the form F.
Yes.
But isn't it a medical termination of pregnancy?
Again, law is silent regarding that. And I will give you one of the best example. See, 2 days back, there was a judgment by Supreme Court. And in that judgment, the patient was having twin pregnancy, went to Maharashtra High Court, and Maharashtra High Court refused for fetal reduction because they said that about 20 weeks, if you do fetal reduction, there is possibility of complication like DNC, DIC and other, and they refused. Now Supreme Court has allowed it at 25 weeks. So fetal reduction is allowed by Supreme Court in that case. Now Supreme Court has allowed, but till date not clarified that whether it should be entered in MTP register or not. So law is silent regarding fetal reduction, and as far as the definition of MTP is concerned, what we say that MTP definition means it is miscarriage. MTP is a miscarriage, although MTP is not defined anywhere. But MTP is a kind of miscarriage, and if you go to the definition of abortion or a miscarriage, it says that expulsion of product of conception from uterus. Okay, now in fetal reduction, there is no expulsion of product of conception. It gets absorbed inside. There is no expulsion at all. So as far as MTP law is silent, we should keep silence and we should continue without filling MTP form in fetal reduction. Once any case will be decided, and if in that case, if any court will guide you that it should be considered as MTP, only then you start filling MTP forms for that, for fetal reduction.
Can I?
Yes, MC Patel sir.
And in simple way, what is MTP? Medical termination of pregnancy. Here in fetal reduction, there is no termination of pregnancy. Pregnancy is still continued. So it doesn't fall in...
one pregnancy is continuing, one or two pregnancies.
One thing. And to clarify a little in a better way, a question raised by Dr. Pradyuman Vaja. say for example, registration is over within this COVID era and up to 30th June it is allowed. Fine. But say for example, he couldn't do all the procedure for renewal before 30th June, or even if he has applied, but at least he should apply 30 days prior as per normal provision of PCPNDT Act. So after 30th June, if he has not done any procedure for renewal, or if he has done procedure of renewal, but there is no communication from appropriate authority, can he practice sonography from 1st July onward?
No, sir. Suspension means everything is suspended. So you can definitely practice till 30th June. There is no doubt in the word itself. Suspension word is used, and the word suspension means all section will not be effective at all.
Agreed.
So whatever was allowed up to 4th April, now it will come into effect from 1st June. And in between period, you can continue working whatever you are.
No, it is clear up to 30th June, there is no problem.
Yes.
What is about 1st of July?
Yes. So on 1st July, the implementation of that act will start. So within reasonable time, means within 30 days, you will have to, within 7 days, I can say that you have to apply in office for renewal if you have not applied. I will give my example. My license has expired on 15th May. Okay. Now I was supposed to apply on 15th April, before 15th April. Now, when I received this message from office, a 4th April notification was received. So I asked office what to do. So they said that up to 30th June, nothing should be done. And you are not supposed to apply because offices are closed. So once office will be open, then you are supposed to apply on 1st as early as possible. That means within reasonable time. So I will apply for renewal in the 1st week of July.
Yes, fine. Almost clear. Yes, over to Sunil.
Yes, Pradyuman, want to?
Just wanted to add to that the query raised by Dr. Manubhai. The query was rightly raised up to 30th June. There is no issue at all. But what I think, my opinion is that after 30th, the act is in existence. It is not suspended.
Yes.
So what I think that when doing a sonography after 30th June, be sure that you have applied or you got the registration. But after, I am talking about 1st July and onwards. Okay, and Gitendra Bhai, all the best.
Thank you, sir.
For your election. And any help, please let us know.
But for abundant caution, only 1 minute, for abundant caution, should we write on the platform of AOGS to our CDHO about this kind of problem, whose license has already expired before 30th June, and they will be applying in 1st week of July or so, till they get communication from appropriate authority. There should no action should be taken from appropriate authority to this group of doctors. Should we write on part of association?
Sir, in individual level, as my this license was expiring on 15th May, so I did this type of communication with appropriate authority on mail, and they have given me the assurance that we are not going to take any action against you and apply within 7 days. That is first 7 days when the office starts.
So all the members of our AOGS who have same kind of problem should give one mail. Just you have a mail to the appropriate authority, not to have any problem in month of July also.
Yeah. So you should send the mail to the appropriate authority from your side.
Yes.
Okay. And your stand will be clear.
But because it shows your intention.
Yes. Yes.
It shows your intention to honor the provision of it.
Yes.
Yes.
As far as Ahmedabad is concerned, they are accepting the application, and mine was the same situation, and they have accepted my application to renew the registration. So now may I request Dr. Hemant Bhai to go ahead. Dr. Hemant Bhai is a past president of Ahmedabad and Obstetric Gynec Society and currently a treasurer of SOGO. Hemant bhai, please go ahead with your questions.
Sunil, I think we have enough of questions and answers. And Dr. Gitendra Sharma is speaking since last 45-50 minutes. I think most of the important questions have been covered. So now I would not like to just bombard our viewers with jargon of questions and to bore them. So let us end with heartfelt thanks to Dr. Gitendra Sharma for answering all queries in a very emphatic manner and with so much of a clarity of thoughts and clarity of rules and regulations. As all the speakers and the office bearers of the SOGOG and the AOGS have said, Dr. Gitendra Sharma is the master blaster of the medical legal profession in our country, and it will be a huge benefit not only to the FOGSI as an institution, but to each and every FOGSI member, that if he is elected as a vice president of the FOGSI, it will be beneficial immensely to all the FOGSI members. So I would earnestly request to all the AOGS members on behalf of SOGOG to elect with a thumping majority by e-voting to Dr. Gitendra Sharma for the vice presidency of the West Zone in FOGSI 2020-21 election. Over to Sunil.
Thank you very much, Hemant bhai, for this beautiful vote of thanks for this webinar from SOGOG, as well as you are a AOGS past president. So on behalf of AOGS and SOGOG, we thanks all the viewers. We thank all the speakers, Rajal Ben, Parul Ben, Dr. Gitendra Sharma, Dr. MC Patel, Dr. Sadim, Dr. Rajni Contractor, Dr. Parul Putradawala, and Dr. Hemant bhai, Dr. Dipesh bhai Dhodakia, and Dr. Meenakshi Ben, Dr. Rajni Contractor. If I have missed anyone, it is not an intention. So thank you very much, everybody, and we conclude this our webinar. So thank you very much, everybody, for
thank you.
Thanks a lot for inviting us.
And all the best to Dr. Gitendra Sharma and Dr. MC Patel Sahib for 2022 president election. Sharma ji, best of luck. You are a winner. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
East or West, Sharma ji is the best.
This election of Dr. Sharma is preliminary election for me also.
Okay.
So this will be test one, and it will be helpful to me during 23 election.
Okay. May I take your leave? Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, sir.
So how many delegates attended this?